Yeah, so the topic for today's talk is about prospects of wellness tourism and the different opportunities and threat in this, which is I think is a prime concern for most of the wellness players, not only in India but even in abroad as well. So let's try to understand the illness wellness paradigm, which has been envisioned by John Travis in 1972. And wellness, as you understand, wellness is not only considered as a static model, it is actually just much more like a process, which is going to be a journey towards a high level of optimum wellness. And this is actually one of the most differentiating factor between illness and wellness. We have seen medical tourism, we have seen people getting better with medical procedures, but these are all like a model where the ultimate aim is basically improving or just treating the present condition and not doing any kind of follow-up. Whereas wellness, and this is one of the vast prospects that you have in the field of wellness, where you are able to handhold your customer until they achieve a high level of wellness, which you know that it is actually just hard to achieve. So it is basically a continuum of journey, and he has also related this particular concept of wellness in terms of Maslow's theory of self-actualization. So it's not only in a means of physical, but it's more like physical, mental, emotional connectivity, and also creativity comes in and also spirituality. Okay, so this is exactly the model that we are following now, even after 40 years, and I think it is actually getting much more evolved as we speak. We have also seen the different version of health, starting from basically an evidence-centric wellness model, which is purely the ultimate objective at those times was only about survivability of the patient, and also the quality was actually not really a matter at those times, but we have evolved to different version of health. Coming back to where we just previously left was actually more like a digitalization, where we have seen different fitness apps, nutritional apps, all these things, and we have actually come out of that, and we have actually just entered into an area of personalization, where the quality of life was a prime concern. Now I think post COVID we will be more going back to these kind of a mix of a combination of these two, which is basically digitalization for some time, at least for the next 1 year or even more, and also personalization, because only with online or digital version of health will not be something that is going to be pleasing and satisfying the client. So we will be seeing a combination of these two. Okay, now let's look at wellness industry. If you really look at in India or even globally, wellness industry constitute there are a lot of different aspects, although we are much more focused on wellness centers and activities and alternative medicine, but there is also a lot of room and lot of opportunity in the field of wellness, which is in terms of beauty and apparel. Ashrams and retreats are actually getting popular as well these days, when people are actually more and more focused on emotional health and spirituality. Fitness and cosmetics, which is basically slimming machines and things like that, or fitness, or barometric oxygen chambers. All these things are actually just getting picked up now. Nutrition and wellness, the nutraceuticals are gaining a lot more popularity, because people are actually just really thinking in terms of getting a recovery in a shorter span of time, and that is the psychological trend now, and you can't really change it, because that is actually where the global trend is moving. And plus alternative centers, which are basically segmentalized alternative centers, like whether it is Ayurvedic center, yoga, Unani, Siddha, naturopathy, yoga centers, all these different things, and typically wellness centers, which I mean the integrated approach. If you really look at the global wellness economy, this is just basically a snapshot this is actually from the statistic published by Global Wellness Institute. And if you really look at the statistics, it's really interesting to know globally there are almost 4.5 trillion market that is actually purely dedicated for total wellness, and out of which wellness tourism accounts for almost 15 to 20% of the total wellness economy. Okay, so in India, the picture is actually just much more even better, because almost 40% of the share comes from wellness tourism in India out of all the wellness market. Okay, so I just want to mention to you about the primary and secondary wellness traveler, because this is very important for us to know, because both of these shares equal revenue. Okay, so it's really important for us to understand this concept, especially for a relaunch, and also to just get adapted to the new norm. Okay, a primary wellness traveler, as you know, they are basically indulging in wellness vacation, or it could be a medical procedure. Medical tourism comes in the rehabilitations like physiotherapy or any other kind of rehabs. We also see like people visiting destination spa for mere stress and de-stress and relaxation. We see people actually spending like vipassana meditation, all these different yoga retreats. We know that a lot of foreigners also come, like even other yoga programs as well, and de-stressing vacations, agro-tourism, eco-tourism, adventure tourism. So all these things, and even now a lot of wellness centers are getting evolved into doing a proper executive checkup, which is mostly like using artificial intelligence and also using other modern technology. Okay, so this is actually just what constitute the primary wellness traveler. And the secondary wellness traveler, the prime objective of these group of people is not really wellness, but they indulge in these kind of activities as an add-on to, or they use that privilege, they use that facility. And these are actually a major chunk as well, almost 87% to the, if primary wellness traveler accounts for 100%, like this accounts for like 87% of the total wellness market. Okay, so now coming back to the tourism spending, if you again, like this was actually just based on the statistical study done by Global Wellness Institute. That when it comes to revenue, always there is a price competency when it comes to wellness tourism. Like wellness tourism accounts for about 53% more than the average international tourist. They spend additional expenses or additional revenue or price on this objective, basically to for the wellness, for the purpose of wellness. And the graph that you see there, like which is in deep pink and also the lighter pink. I have a problem with the color identifying colors. So anyway, so if you see that the international primary wellness travelers spent about $1,800 per person, and the international secondary wellness travelers spent almost $1,400. So it is almost like 85% of the revenue that is being spent by a primary wellness traveler. And domestic wellness travelers about 178% more. Of course, that there is a disparity in price, like when it comes to international travelers and also the domestic travelers, and the spend is much more like than a typical international travelers. Let's come back to the opportunity and threat that we see now, like with the recent times or with the recent trend and fiasco that is happening in the society. Some of these very pleasing and satisfying information, like under opportunity, you see that India, the wellness market is about 490 billion, and out of which, as I said, 40% constitute, or it is alone from wellness tourism. And there is a very strong optimism from the players of the wellness industry for future growth of wellness tourism, because we know that this is actually way forward. There is nothing else that is actually going to replace this wellness, because people are actually much more aware of the side effects of all these healthcare, that is the conventional healthcare system in India and abroad. So there are more and more people who are actually just converting or looking into getting a better treatment, or prevention is also like getting a much more popularity. And spa, Ayurveda, nutraceuticals, yoga, all these are key money earners. If you really look at segmentalized revenue growth, these are the key earners basically in Indian wellness tourism. And Indian herbal industry is, again, like as I said, the nutraceuticals are getting a big win at the current times. And another trend that we see, like which is actually a greater opportunity, we are seeing a lot of players, whether it is domestic or international brands, wanting to franchise, or they want to just get an entry to India, knowing that Indian system of medicine, Indian traditional systems are of utmost important for people to even commercialize. Although we are not able to do much, but there are a lot of foreign players who are actually just deeply thinking about commercializing the knowledge that comes from India. And any positive outlook in commercialization should be always welcome. Okay, so and also there are a lot of issue or barriers when it comes to the escalating cost of modern care, because that mostly the hospitalization and surgical procedures and all those things are actually just big spenders. So people are actually just getting more and more aware of taking care of their own health. And micro segmentation is actually another area where people have actually just pivoted the market or business into some strategic compliance, like basic strategic methods or process saying that people have actually just converged the entire business into only one particular segment. People have actually gone into a different aspect, like say ecotourism is one thing, agrotourism is actually another thing. So there are actually a lot of segmentation that we see in these different areas. And also this last point that I have, the continued need of managing the after effects of COVID-19. We all know that although for this particular condition as COVID-19, we may not be able to do much in terms of wellness tourism, or rather we are not even allowed to do much, but at least we will be able to use this particular wellness market as an adjuvant therapy. Or what you will see is, you will see a growing trend in these negative thoughts or emotional ill health in people, like at least for another year or two. Like people will have continued isolation anxieties, or they will have constant depression. A lot of people have lost their jobs, so there will be some emotional turmoil that comes out of that. And we will be able to very well tap into this market if you slightly strategize our business for the customer need. And it's also proven that people actually just normally make a behavior out of the negative or emotional factors, and we will come to that much detail. Now, the most important threats that I see in this particular time period, after the COVID, one will be the main factor, which I think almost all the industries will actually suffer about, the slowdown in economy. People will be much more choosy in when they spend. There will be less disposable income. Okay, so the saving will reduce, and a lot of people, as I said, even foreign exchange will actually just reduce, because revenue that comes from international destinations also will reduce, because that there are a lot of people who are returning back to India. So even that is one aspect. And the perception in airlines and hospitality sector, this is also going to be a major threat, because the customer perception will actually change about traveling, and there will be a lot of reduction in travel by the secondary wellness travelers, which we have already seen that they constitute a major chunk of the wellness revenue. And also all other hassles that are involved in visa processing, there will be much more, it won't be as customer friendly as it used to be about processing the visas, travel from overseas, all these things. So there will be a lot of red tapes and delay in processing this kind of information. And also the customers will be giving a lot more priority in safety. And this will be beyond the skills. It doesn't matter how good you are in your own field of expertise, but if you are not really focusing much on the safety and hygiene aspect, the customers are going to think twice before they actually even come to your center or even undertake. And India, that is actually one of the major concerns we have about the sanitization and hygiene standard of all the wellness centers and even other places, who are basically part of the wellness providers. Okay, and also we will see a huge gap, a wealth gap in future, because people who have or who were actually in a HN1 or HNI class, they will continue to be spenders. But as I said, the middle class people, because of the lost job and other aspects, they will take a break from indulging in these kind of pleasure seeking behaviors. And also increase in digitalization, providing falsified information, that will be a major threat. You see that a lot of apps have been growing, and people are actually really thinking in that line about giving information based on remote connection or online platforms, and you will see customers getting a lot of falsified information, which will give them a feeling of gratification that they are using something, but it may not be the real need. And changing human travel behavior, which we will come to that again. We will actually just detail it out. And another pattern that you will see as a threat will be the industry. The wellness industry will be mostly led by government agencies and bigger corporate firms. This will be major threat for the small, medium enterprises and also startups. This will actually just really be hitting very negatively on them. So people have to be really smart in thinking and doing the startup and run the small industries in a different perception. Okay, so and also sustainable and natural tourism. So deforestation and any other practices about waste management and all those things, people will actually just now have to be a bit more serious about how they handle these kind of things, so that the natural and sustainable tourism can be promoted, because this will be the future. People will be more and more, there will be a likelihood of people spending more time in these kind of natural or sustainable tourism, and lack of standardization of practices, and as I said, customer friendly travel. Now, we need to, before we actually even putting together a strategy for moving forward, we need to see where we have actually got disconnected in 2019 or early part of 2020. We have seen the evolution of wellness from just simple sleep therapy, which used to be a major thing before, but we have seen people actually going into much more deeper science, understanding the body clocks, so the circadian rhythm, and working around that. So it's not just simply a sleep therapy, it is actually much more beyond that. We have seen themed culinary practices like keto diet, gluten-free, lactose-free, not only major wellness residential places, but even the small outlets offering these kind of services in India, which was actually just unlikely in the past. So and we have seen smart technology facilitating mental wellness, like and reaching the doorsteps, like meditation classes, a lot of hypnotherapies, or even past life regression. All these things, people are actually just now finding different ways to reach to the doorstep, and this will actually have to be continued, because that is where we left, and this is a huge gap for us to really rethink, because 3 to 4 months of complete shutdown, we have never envisioned, we have never imagined, we have never dreamt. So it is really important for us to just go back to the state of mind 4 months ago, and then start from there once we relaunch. And focused workout, like this is another thing. People, the time is gone, like where people actually just spend 3 to 4 hours in the gym, but people have been smarter in using the time creatively. If they are getting half an hour to 1 hour time, they have been doing focused workouts like Pilates, yoga, or even Tai Chi, core building sessions, physiotherapy sessions. So this will have to be continued. Softer biomarkers, hormone panels, DNA, epigenetics, anti-aging programs. So these things again will have to be continued, because we have seen this trend just when we close down. Then emotional health, mindfulness, soul therapy, energy medicine. This has actually just really taken a big win in the recent times. So that also will have to be continued, because that is also the need of the hour now. And functional medicine, getting into the practice, the mainstream medicine in managing these conditions, that is also like something that we have to be really looking into. The natural authentic products, nutraceuticals, adventure tourism, and also one more important thing, which was not really very common in India, about corporate wellness programs. In India, mostly the corporate wellness were used by international companies, because that is actually a trend globally. But in India, we have just seen a movement and interest in this particular area, which also need to be continued. Alongside, we also need to identify the potential market by looking at the older trends, and that will still be a trend moving forward, which is all these things that has been listed. I'm not getting into that, because this we have already seen. We all know that, how important all these things are. So this will also have to be continued along with the additional things. See, one of the biggest thing that we have learned from this COVID stigma that is around is that there are a lot more public awareness that's been created among the people who are not really aware of what is immunity, what is wellness, and how do we take care, what is prevention. People were not really very focused and aware of that. That the cardiovascular death is maybe about 50 times more than COVID death. But nobody really looked at a preventive strategy around managing your heart health or hypertension or even diabetes. They were actually just major killers than the COVID. But now people are actually just so much focused on this COVID-19 situation, and we all know that there are certain comorbid conditions or pre-existing illness that is actually very it causes more susceptibility for getting these kind of infections. And this is actually something that is a positive sign for us, because we know that every such condition that has been listed as a comorbid condition for getting COVID-19, we know that there is a modifiable behaviors behind that. And if you can really tap into these modifiable behaviors and try to or make the customer or the public understand that these are the major thing that one has to do, so that you will not be susceptible for these conditions, and you will be creating much more immunity within your body, so that you will not be a victim. So this is actually very important factor for us, and most of our wellness parameters are based on these kind of behaviors, how to overcome. Normally for a business, it is said that market penetration is something that is easy to do, and product development and market development, which is making a new products in the existing market or the existing products selling it in the new market, has been always like with an effort. And diversification, which is creating a new product and selling it in a new market, has been always a challenge in a typical industry scenario. But now these three things, which is product development, market development, diversification, will actually just really be important for every wellness player, because now with all these conditions, every single people will have to now change the strategy. Before, I'll just give you an example. Maybe you have a facial clinic where people were actually just very much doing cosmetic therapies, but you will not be able to do that, because there is a much more chance of close contact with the customer. So you will have to now strategize and see how best you can actually deliver these kind of services in a smarter way. So there will be new products, and you are going to create because with this additional facility of online platform, you will not be able to charge a premium for the client just compared to a face-to-face services. So you will see opening of a lot of new market, people who are actually just able to afford you better, so these will be opened up, and you will be able to sell your products, which is actually created based on the current strategy. You will be able to sell it through across the market. So I think there is a great potential in creating these kind of things, and I see that this is actually going to be a big opportunity for us in diversifying our offerings. And now let's look at how we can actually overcome some of these potential barriers which we discussed under threat. One of the major thing would be about quality standards. You need to really create a unique strategy around how you plan your quality and how you can actually just get it across to the customer. And it's not only planning a quality, but you also need to have look for ways for continued improvement in that. It's not just one time business. It is something you need to be having a proper strategy around how you're going to improve this continuously. And any areas which are not really satisfactory, you need to be reworking on that, and a proper screening of customers and team. This is really important. When I say screening, it's not only important you doing it, but you need to really send this perception to the customers as well, because these are actually something that people will be looking for. And also next is about regulations and accreditations. We know that most of these places are now or we are actually just moving towards getting an NABH accreditation, which will be a norm now moving forward. So there will be a lot of legislation and regulation of wellness practices which we don't have it in India at the moment, as it is much more stronger in Thailand and other places. With the Spa Association, there is a lot more norms and regulations that people have to comply with. Okay, so this will be something that is very important moving forward. And the safety and hygiene norms well displayed, that is also important. As I said, people have to be visibly seen doing something, not really just doing it. The physical evidence, the physical environment and hygiene, because based on a survey that has been conducted by many of the organizations, now people are actually very sensitive about communal places and also shared places. Okay, so this will also have to be really looked at. And your packaging and presentation, this is also important. How you present a product, this is also very important. So and also the need for having seen as clean, as I said. And I'll give you one example. Looking at the picture on the right hand side, you see what is normally expected. Okay, don't just focus on the toilet roll, but I just gave you an example. But normally, that people actually just as part of the cleaning procedures in any hotels, we normally just fold it in a triangular way. And this is nothing but it is a kind of perception that we create for the customer that someone has just attended this place. Okay, so this is actually what is expected from the customer. Now we have to be moving from what is expected to what is exceeding expectations. So what you see below is actually something like, much more. So any areas where you have, or any venues where you have where you can put extra effort or extra attention. This is actually something that need to be really need of the hour now. People need to be much more sensitive about showcasing this product like in a much more clean environment. As you see, 90% of our information sent to the brain is actually just really processed faster. Okay, so visual, or they are really visual, not really like what you tell. Okay, so what you tell the customer, they need to be seen. Okay, so coming back to the difference, normally, as I say, vitamins normally I say these are something, it's actually a kind of, it's nice to have. It's not really a mandatory thing. Okay, so whereas when it comes to painkillers, that address a burning need. Okay, right now our services need to be really painkillers for people. Why people actually just resort into taking a painkiller when they get a pain? Because that actually gives them an immediate solution. Whereas vitamins, which will have a long strategy, because if you start taking vitamin C, you know that is a business for a longer term, but it is not something like people will prioritize. So our offering that we do now has to be something that is priority based on our understanding the customer's need at the time. Okay, so this is actually something that we need to really look into, or basically changing the habit of people from a pleasure seeking behavior to a pain alleviating behavior. So this is actually what is really needed by most of the players, that how do we assess, or how do we promise the client that, okay, this is actually going to address your burning concern. Okay, so this is also like very important. And normally the customer habits are built upon like different layers. So it has an external trigger. This is actually what you see. In the past, people used to be looking for discounts. If you see like, buy one get one, or 50% discount, people used to just rush in to buy. But moving forward, I think people will be more focused on the internal triggers. Is it really needed for me? Is it really satisfying my emotions? Is it really changing my routine? So these things, or is it really going to help me bind with more people? Okay, so these things will be like, much more of an importance now. Like every habit is normally formed from a powerful internal trigger. And the external trigger is not really like going to be very pleasing for everyone, or not for it, or it won't be a lasting thing. Like you buy something for 50%, and if you use it for once, and if you're going to discard it, it doesn't really promote any repeat business. Okay, so whereas if you're able to meet someone's internal trigger, which is all this negative thinking, negative thoughts, indecisiveness, the fatigue, dissatisfaction, fear of loss, all these things are going to be long lasting. And this is actually what we do. Like when you are emotionally really upset, or if you are going through any kind of emotional issues, you directly try to get some kind of pleasure by going into YouTube, Facebook, all these things. Not so any internal trigger always like gives us a opportunity for action. Okay, so creating your buyer's persona is very important for your business, understanding like what is really the internal trigger of your customer, and that will be different to different organizations. You will be succeeding, or you will be able to align your business when you are actually understanding what is customer expectation, from speaking to them, like reaching them, or trying to understand what is the trend, to the capabilities of you, like what you can provide, how you can, or how much you can actually satisfy the expectation by being creative, innovative, and also engaging with them, and also winning the trust of the customer. So this buying behavior is very important for moving forward. Any behavior is basically the equation is basically, it is a sum total of your motivation, your ability, and the triggers. And the 6 motivational factors, according to Dr. BJ Fogg from Stanford University, he says that people are motivated to buy or do any action when they have, either they are seeking for pleasure. If you are relating to our industry, either people will be looking for these kind of pleasing or pleasure making spa treatments, avoiding pain, which you see on the left hand side. People actually just prefer doing a Botox than a cosmetic surgery because they don't want to go through all the pain, right? Seeking hope. Although we claim, like a lot of services anti-aging, we all know that, like it's not going, there is nothing that actually called as anti-aging, but people are hoping, by looking at the picture, they are hoping that, okay, I'll get better. Okay, so that is another aspect. Avoiding fear, which is fear of all the illnesses, like people don't really, which you see on the left hand side, they don't really see, they go for these kind of therapies. Why do people actually just visit an Ayurvedic center for Panchakarma treatment every year? Because they are being told that you need to take this Panchakarma every year so you don't get any disease. So it is a prevention. And then you have seeking acceptance from the society. You see, people actually go for slimming packages and all those things because they want to be better accepted in the society. And avoiding rejection, finally, mainly people who are actually having mental health issues and things like that. One of the things that they go through is stress, anxiety, and also the fear of rejection from the society. So these are the 6 behavior which really determine, or motivational behaviors which really determine for you to do an action. And now this also is very important for us to understand. As I said, people really like to watch a 2020 than a test cricket, because you are actually seeing a shorter finish line. You are seeing the result in a shorter span of time. Nobody has time to just wait for ages. Okay, so time is at most matter. So we need to really think on that. People like to see a reward. Like when they actually spend some time with you, like they want to see what they are gaining. So that is also important, meeting the objectives. And they also want to see a tangible benefit out of it. It's not really getting you scoring, but you need to see how better I perform compared to before. Okay, and also it needs to satisfy your brain cycles, basically the emotional turmoil that you have inside. It needs to be meeting that. And also it should be you should have, or you should improve your social value. We all human beings are social beings, so we need to ensure that our social value is being improved by looking at this. And also plus it should break your routine. Okay, now looking at also the triggers, as I said, motivation, ability, and trigger. These 3 things are very important. I'll give you one simple example. When you get a message on your phone, there are 3 factors that actually make you just leave it aside. One, if it is an unknown number, you don't really look at it. So there's no motivation. Okay, that factor is completely drawn. So you don't really just bother to read it or anything. Okay, it's an unknown number. The second is if the phone is in silent mode. So there is no trigger. Okay, you're not listening to it. And the last thing is ability. If you're actually with a social group, you don't want to have a distraction. So you don't really look at it. So these 3 factors are very important for making or a proper action. One more slide on this particular thing before we go to I have at least 2-3 slides more. So this particular thing, it really says that when you put your involvement, and this is really needed now, a personal touch is always sold at a high premium. And this is very important for you to know, coming from a third party. So we all need to be expert in our field in defining what is wellness, and in a much more scientific way, in a much more evidence-based way. And also we need to show that this is being put together by giving extra sense, and it's actually going to just please your senses as well. The 7 consumer buying insights, this is actually a recent study that has been done by ISPA, and also this is post-COVID. So they have actually just done the statistics, and they find that a lot more people are concerned about the physical and mental wellness, which is even while being isolated, which is a real positive sign. There are a lot of people who are actually just about 25% of them use online platforms for doing yoga, exercise, and things like that. Personal care in the home, 55% do their own nail care and hair care at home, and even aromatherapy. A positive sign again. 25% commented that they are not, they will be nervous to go to the spa. So 75%, which is a major chunk, are not really bothered in visiting a wellness center even after the condition. And 65% said that they will avoid communal spaces and shared places. And this is important for us to know that everyone has to have their own personal space, which we promise them. Okay, and more than 45% insist on hand hygiene and mask and all those things. Again, we need to be really looking at it. And 80%, this is actually very, very interesting, guys. 80% commented that they would not mind spending extra premium for the additional services. So this is very satisfying that you don't really need to be discounting. Rather, you should be just giving them value addition than discounting. And how do we establish a strong wellness model? Start wellness from inside. So it needs to be, you need to really create a passionate team, not only in the centers. I'm saying generally in India, we need to really have some serious wellness players to increase this market in India. And also you should be not selling a product like the discount options and, or like inviting people with all the marketing strategy is actually going to go away. But you need to be really promising them, okay, I'm going to just meet your emotional need at the moment. And also the unique strategy, we need to just really come up with a unique strategy which is actually going to be used for years to come. So prevention, then approach, cure approach. And also try to be the policy maker. Okay, you should be the navigator. Basically, like, people need to follow you. So that is how we have to just position India, like as someone who actually lead from front. And also make sure that not only addressing a pain, but it also need to be satisfying all other senses, like with all the additional hygiene, cleanliness and everything. So all your 5 senses have to be really satisfied. And also not to be result oriented. So just to summarize, so in summary, the sweet spot is found when you know what you're doing and if you're really passionate about it. And you also need to understand what is the wellness trend, what the world needs. And if you're not satisfying those needs, then you're nowhere. Okay. And also you need to know what you're really good at, your skill. You can't do everything. Okay. So you need to really understand what you are really good at and try to focus on that, invest your time and money in that. And also it has to be made affordable for the people that you are really targeting for that particular niche market. I think that is the end of it.